Hi, René here. Those of you who are subscribers to my channel or visited me before know from my previous videos that I had tremendous problems with my JDS devices. Two repairs, permanent sizzling and hum, and even the sound quality turned out to be underwhelming. No wonder I'm looking for replacement. Before you join me on my search, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. I went through hard times of disappointment, cluelessness and pondering, waiting for divine inspiration, vacillating between depressive surrender and rays of hope. But finally, my will to shake off the yoke gained the upper hand because it was clear that being tortured by these amplifiers, I would never find hi-fi peace again. So I summoned all my courage and asked a seller if I could exchange at least the monoblocks for an amplifier that worked more reliable and hopefully sounded better. To my amazement, the answer was positive. Totally overjoyed, I chose two devices and asked for a statement of surcharge because the two amps I had picked were more expensive than the JDS. The amount was correct, and happily I hurried to the nearest temple to offer my prayers of thanksgiving to the local deities. However, the sugar-sweet offer had a serious snag which almost knocked me out and put me under an ice-cold shower. A deduction of 30%. This was a trade-in and not an exchange within the conditions of warranty. I had fallen victim to Catch-22. You certainly know this famous book, whose title has become a set locution for an inescapable situation, like you see it in this picture of a head entangled in the roots of a tree in Ayutthaya here in Thailand. My choice was to go on living with daily torture and disappointment, or shed a considerable bunch of feathers. Unfortunately, there were only two alternatives to pick from in the shop. The first one was an Aavik P-280, which is in the price range of the JD's JA30. It offers the latest technology from the Denmark group, sports an easy-to-read digital display, gorgeous specs, power on end, 300 watts per channel, great reviews which promise emotion and warmth, pitch black background and cosmic silence thanks to numberless Tesla coils, only 9 kilograms, therefore easy to move around. Everything sounded very tempting. The second choice was the Luxman M10X, the very opposite of the P280. Japanese noble manufacture, decades of relentless research and improvement, a feast for the eyes to look inside, impeccable workmanship, non-feedback design, thick copper plates for data transfer, gold-plated circuit boards, 150 watts per channel, not out of this world, but certainly sufficient, and up-to-date technology, which resulted in a weight of back-breaking 48 kilograms. When I compared this amp with its thick aluminum front plate and the glimming VU meters to the lightweight Aavik chocolate boxes, oh boy, I could hardly resist. And the price here in Thailand was an absolute steal. Half the price you pay in Europe or in the States. Let's begin with the Aavik. I was impressed on the spot because it was so dynamic and so vivid. After the first track, I was feeling a little strained, and when the second track was running, I focused on the suspicious effect that had alarmed me, while the third piece confirmed what I had noticed, a quickly rising listening fatigue. My negative experience with the Jadis helped me to expose the critical point within a very short time. Too much of the perfume number 280. The firework which had blinded me for the first minutes made me tired very quickly, and it became clear to me that this was something I would not enjoy for extended periods of listening. A hard rock fan who loves it when the music literally jumps into his face will love it, but it was nothing for me. This canon had been presented to me in vain. But why had I short-listed an Aavik device in the first place? The answer is easy. I had been listening to the flagships in this room a few weeks before, and I was seriously impressed. But a lifeboat is not a flagship. And if you can't afford the latter, it's better not to remain seated in the sinking lifeboat. I had to get my sweets from somewhere else. Maybe from Luxman? The M10 sounded much more rounded, fluid, and composed. Did it overshoot the target? Was it too measured and controlled? Not sure. Certainly this amp would not cause any listening fatigue, but it would not be the one to plant bombs under my butt when I had an itching to go on the rampage with a few tracks. On the other hand, I loved the elegant resolution, its composed presentation of details, and the bass, which simply was there but never imposed itself nor on the music nor on my ears. I had to smile appreciatively when I thought of Che's review of the previous model, the M900U, where he said the Luxman was a no-complain amp, which simply got out of the way of the music. But that's how we high-end people are. As soon as we have something almost perfect and neutral, we start looking for special traits which might separate it from the crowd and make it special. I confess that I still have the childish dream that real high-end should, on top of correct rendering the recorded sound, be able to convey the magic of the music to ignite sparks of enthusiasm. As this combination is so difficult to achieve, people fall for the deliberate colorations, for the brand sound of many companies like JD's or Macintosh and many others. Now I was caught between two stools. If I wanted to get rid of the awkward hum, I had to pay a considerable surcharge. So I wanted to get an additional bonus as well, which was better sound. Or to phrase it in more honest words, a sound that really bewitched me. As this had not happened yet, I asked for time to think the trade-in over carefully. A burnt child shies away from the fire, and I did not want to make a second mistake because high-end bad buys are expensive. I returned home and made myself a planning board. This is what it looked like. Many people had told me to listen to an Accuphase before I made a decision, but unfortunately this brand was not available in the shop. While I was regretting this and desperately but unsuccessfully putting out my feelers, my helpful second dealer, who knew about my jam, gave me a miraculous call. A customer of his, who lived quite near my own home, had bought a pair of ATC 100. They had already been shipped to his home, but a service team was going to do the setup for him in a few days. Mr. Tannoy, owner of Live Audio, and my dealer, Mr. Wasan, had decided to use the opportunity to swing by my home and to help me check if an amplifier change would really put an end to my hum problem, or if I was only going to get from the frying pan into the fire. Furthermore, they were willing to bring an Accuphase A-80 and into the bargain a pair of ATC 50 speakers to make a long-cherished dream of mine come true, to listen to a competitive speaker next to my Tannoys. Sadly, they could not ship the humongous ATC 100 to me, but a brand new pair of ATC 50s, which at least was a 15,000 euro dream, and would by far exceed the performance of speakers like the Triangle Pro 8 or the Monitor Audio Gold they had supplied to me for a test before. Do you remember my regret that Audio Absolute does not have Accuphase in their range of brands? All good things go by three, people say, and now an A-80 was to snow into my home to help me determine my position and the way to continue. I was looking forward excitedly to the historical day. And then around noon, a pickup full of piled-up boxes parked in front of my house. The company owner with his team had come all the way from Chonburi, 300 kilometers away, where his office is based. My hi-fi retailer and his wife came from Bangkok to lend a helping hand. It is impossible to render the results of a 10 hours demo, setting up everything, changing cables, and a bunch of accessories, in a short video. But I'm trying to outline the outcome of the listening session, which aimed at no less than evaluating the ranks of a top-level amplifier and an unusual pair of loudspeakers. I didn't have the concentration to listen on my own behalf and to make a lot of clips and notes for an expansive report simultaneously, and I hope you will bear with some interesting details and the gist of the show. First of all, the ATC speakers were lifted down. Each box weighs over 40 kilograms and takes 2 or 3 people to do the job. Here comes the second box. This is the Accuphase preamplifier C2300. It weighs only 20 kilograms. The A-80 amplifier weighs about 50 kilograms, not a job for a single person. Everything is piled up in front of the house now. The first step of the hard work is done. Lift high the door, the gates draw wide. Fortunately, I had planned ahead for big boxes when I had the house built. A short inspection of the crime scene followed. My amps were switched off. The A-80 power amp, thankfully, has got big handles in front and rear. The live audio anti-vibration feet were patiently unwrapped. A serious competition for the stack over isolators, by the way. Here the live audio terminating plugs were inserted. Even a $20,000 amp is not immune to noise. Also, the CD player and the preamplifier sounded a notch or two better. I have not yet had an opportunity to compare them with the Sortz or the Furutech, but I was blown away by the improvement and would not be surprised if they worked even better than those of the competition. Listening to the ATC speakers, I noticed immediately that I had serious competitors next to the Tannoys in my room. The extremely fine resolution, the transparent sonic pictures of whatever was presented on the soundstage, the neutral and correct tonality, and the reasonable tight slam of the woofer at first made me worry I might have fallen victim to an illusion and could have enjoyed the same grandeur of beautiful music with much smaller speakers like these. Maybe my only mass is really class philosophy, and my only a tower has enough power religion, which date back to times when it still was possible for an average earner like me to afford big things like these, are meaningless vanity. Nowadays, bookshelf speakers are the big thing, aren't they? Look at this review. A 48-kilogram amp is sitting enthroned between a pair of shoebox-sized speakers. Maybe I'm too old to accept this suspicious trend which seems to defy the laws of physics. After an extensive listen, when we all had got adapted to the charming sound of the ATCs, Mr. Tannoy was so gracious to plug the speaker cables back into the Tannoys. And behold, can you guess what happened? They did not sound better. They sounded different. Not so addicted to detail, not so eager to trace every little movement on the stage, but overwhelmingly relaxed, treating things in a royal way instead of applying bureaucratic meticulousness. Adrian's verdict was right. A spacious recording studio turned into a concert hall. This kind of authority cannot come from a smallish cabinet with clearly less membrane surface area. Steve Guttenberg reviewed just a few months ago the active version of the speakers and was quite enthusiastic about them, but still he conceded that it could not reproduce a real life scale, and also the author of this review admitted that the space was somewhat limited in height. Look at these pictures and compare for yourselves. Mid-range, bass drivers. Physical miracles don't happen very often. Mr. Tannoy conceded that in order to beat the Tannoys, it was better to skip on the 100 he had presented at the previous high-end show and to go to the ATC 200. Here we are, two 12-inch woofers. Bingo! That was to my likes, except for the price, 40,000 euros. But people who are in the market for speakers in this price range should consider looking at the ATC 300. They have 14-inch woofers and go down to 25 Hz like my Tannoys. Having heard the ATC 50, I'm sure they will win over them regarding punch, clarity and authority. But my bank account does not have the financial clout. Now let's move on to the leading actress of the day, the Accuphase A-80. Female when I think of the soft and silky sound quality the amp is capable of, and leading actor when I spotlight its impressive male features, its never-failing power, and force with which it pressurized the room where the Chadis JA30 offered only increased volume, which is not the same, because increased volume without substance is painful. There was no need to go through 10 or 20 CDs. After very few tracks I was already convinced. Now the drums and bongos created the powerful firework I had always been looking for. The room was filled with a stable presentation of the musicians on the stage. No more artificial halos around singers and instruments with which the A-80 had always tried to bewitch me. Details were clear and crisp. Singers were convincingly lifelike. No more nitpicking and p-counting, simply switching the device on, enjoying the music. That's what I had been waiting for in order to listen to music without spoiling my pleasure by the alarms of the critical side of my ears. No need to return to Aavik and Luxman and going through the trouble of comparing again. The solution was there in my hi-fi rack, a sparkling champagne-colored amp which was even capable of giving me that additional bit of high-end flair that turns bits into musical magic. Was my problem solved now? Live audio also accepts trade-ins. So let's have a look at the price. 630,000 Thai baht, respectively 16,000 euros. But as I had bought the JDs from another shop, the surcharge would be heftier than I had expected. This channel certainly has viewers from all income groups, but the majority will probably agree that it is not so easy to come up with $10,000 or $15,000 just like that. And let's not forget, this expense is for improving the listening pleasure, not a down payment for a car or a monthly rate for a condominium. And the counter value of a first car is already buried in the existing setup. My trip to the stars was broken and over. I had to give up. The dealers were disappointed, but I had told them before my financial reserves were almost used up and I could not promise a purchase. Crestfallen atmosphere on the next day. I understand the demo had been a really laborious operation, a time-consuming and strenuous attempt, and I would at least like to thank Mr. Tannoy, owner of Live Audio, and his diligent team, as well as Mr. Wassan, dealer for the Live Audio shop, for their great effort. There was so much to talk about, and I almost forgot to reveal the result of the initial offer of help, namely to find out if an exchange of the amplifier would remove the distressful sounds which have been pestering me for more than half a year with a high-frequency sizzle and never-ending variations of hum. When we switched on the A-80, there was heavenly silence in my listening room, giving evidence that my torture had been caused only by the JD's A-30. But as there is no warranty for that in Thailand and the dealer does not take any responsibility, I'm left alone with the bitter financial damage of an emergency sale, respectively trade-in. My advice, think twice before you buy JDs. Within the protected electrical network of the shopping mall, and with the sophisticated preventive installations of the shop, they do work properly, but in private homes they often fail, at least in Thailand, with its chaotic public wiring system. I returned to my planning board. Finally, there was only the section Others to be dealt with. You are wondering why I still have a look at that part at all? Well, it finally gained importance when my other hi-fi dealer in Bangkok sent me a photo of a humongous amp as powerful as 100 watts Class A per channel and with a price tag saying $20,000 recommended retail price. A customer had just traded it in, and as a second-hand purchase, it was in my personal financial reach. Why not give it a listen? This was my last chance if I wanted at least 3 devices to choose from. I had to go to Bangkok again to make a decision. Thank you for watching. I hope you will come back to the channel to learn about the result of the final showdown. Cheers and chok ti to my Thai listeners.